And today we have a subject that came up on the Parents of College Board Class of 2021. It's a Facebook group that, Bobby, I was reading last night, and I was like, we've got to talk about this because I saw quite a bit happening in that thread.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about that today. But before I do that, how are you doing today?
I'm doing just great. We're recording this today on Inauguration Day. So, it's a exciting day for the country. And so it's a good day to get together and talk about changes that are coming up in the future.
Yeah, and our topic I'm hearing is breaking news. So I figured if anybody knew anything about this, it'd be you.
Yeah, I saw this on the news yesterday, and this is kind of an exciting change and might be confusing if you aren't familiar with this stuff the way I've been living with it for 10 years. College Board has announced that they are discontinuing what are called the SAT subject tests, and also they are removing the optional essay or the optional SAT essay from the SAT, basically like immediately, which is kind of interesting. Normally, you would think that things like this would be announced a year or so in advance or something like that. I know they have just directly announced that there is no such thing as the SAT subject tests anymore, at least for United States students. Apparently, they're going to continue administering subject tests for international students because some, I guess, international schools or something, care about that, or those are used for some purpose. So they're going to continue them for a little while for international students. But so I guess we ought to talk about, just what the SAT subjects are and what they have been, right?
Yeah, we definitely need to do that. And then I have some of the topics that were coming up last night that I'll
Oh,
just,
sure. Yeah, go ahead and just bring one of those up and let's see what people are saying about it. And let's
Okay,
talk about
sure. And for anybody that is watching us live, feel free to ask Bobby any questions that you have. And anybody that's listening to us after the fact, again, ask us questions. We are more than happy to reach out and help.
Absolutely.
So Melissa V said, my senior's a fantastic test taker and did great, so it helped, meaning the subject tests.
Mm-hmm.
For my 8th grader, I'm a little relieved. She's good, but I just think she has more to offer than her potential score would show.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about that?
Well, so, the SAT subject tests have existed since we were in high school. They've always existed, but most people just didn't know about them or pay any attention to them because the SAT subject tests were intended to let you show your mastery of a particular subject, like math or biology or whatever it is. And they come from College Board, which is the same company that makes the SAT. Interestingly, if you think about like a test you use to show that you mastered a particular subject like economics or government or art or whatever, you would think of the AP tests, which are also made by College Board. So for all these years, you take an AP course, you take an AP test, and if you do well on the AP test, you score a 4 or a 5. Often you will get some kind of college credit or even a 3. You might get some hours of college credit. Then you also had the SAT subject tests, which you could take to indicate that you mastered a subject, but you wouldn't get any college credit for taking them. So I think it makes complete sense why I think for many years people have said, why in the heck do these SAT subject tests exist at all? Because you've got AP tests. And so traditionally, for the last 10 years, the only students who ever needed to think about SAT subject tests were students who were planning to go to one of the absolutely most elite Ivy League colleges. Those were the only colleges left that would actually require, and they would say, we require that you take 2 SAT subject tests, like math plus something else or something like that. And so I think what has happened is that those colleges removed their requirements to take the SAT subject test. So demand dropped off to near zero. So College Board said, why are we spending any money, supporting this anymore, right? The official thing they're saying is that if you want to show your mastery of a subject, take an AP class and take the associated AP test. So parents who are saying, oh, this is my way for my student to show that they did well at things. Uh, the way to do that now is to take the AP test. So I think it's still an option for doing that.
Okay, so there's a timing issue then that's happening, I'm sure, right?
Mhm.
Because if their kids are not in AP classes, you know,
Right.
I guess, can you back up a little bit, Bobby? And
Mhm.
I know you explained what a subject test is.
Oh, sure.
Like what, yeah, what exactly is it? And then, how many students typically have taken this? You alluded to it, maybe not a lot.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the subject test, like basically there was one subject test for almost every standard course you might take in school, from, economics and government to every science to every single language. And generally, except for the languages, the test was just almost always a like 40 or 60 question multiple choice test. That's all. Which made it, reasonably easy to prepare for. And so what you would do if you wanted to show, hey, I really am great at, especially if you like, traditionally, the other people who would take this was students who wanted to be an engineer. A lot of the top engineering schools would require that you take at least the math level 2 subject test and one science subject test, right? Like physics or something like that, and show that you got a near, perfect score on those tests. And so that's who would take these things, as students who were aiming for, like either an engineering major or trying to go to a very top college, and they just wanted one more piece to their application that shows that they did very well. And so part of the thing is, a ninth grader could take an SAT subject test if they wanted to, right? If you were in 10th grade and you took, AP, chemistry or whatever, you'd go ahead and, or whatever, you would go ahead and take the subject test right then, along with the AP test. So it's just one more test you would take. And just a few like elite colleges would care about that. And I think one of the big criticisms over the years of these tests is that's more money you have to spend. It's more mornings you have to go and take. And also, there are students who are brilliant students who are in rural areas where their school perhaps only offers 4 AP classes, right?
Right. So is this a big deal to parents?
I don't think it's a big deal at all. I mean, even my most, like my, of, the last year, the 100 students I tutored in the last year, I think 2 of them were taking SAT subject tests. Like,
Okay, so this really
that's it.
is, yeah. So nobody should be stressing, or should there be certain people stressing about the fact that this has gone away?
Oh no, nobody should be stressed at all about it. I mean, it is, I think there's so much of a tradition, and you and I have talked about this so much, that like there's so much confusion and misinformation out there about college applications. And one of them is you must go get a perfect score on every single test that exists and do every single thing that exists in order to apply, right? And it was true that, like, it was still the case 2 years ago that if you wanted to go to Harvard or wherever, that you probably should take a couple of subject tests that would improve your chances of application. But it was still just, it was more like, if you don't do this, it will look bad, right?
Right,
But it wasn't like, oh, you got this score, so now we're going to pick this student because they got an 800 on the SAT math subject test or whatever. That is, nobody was doing that. It was just like, oh, here's a checklist of 15 things or 20 things you better do if you want to go to Harvard. So now that list just has one less thing on the checklist, and it just means you should take more AP tests, right? But the good thing about college admissions, especially that the reason people shouldn't be stressed, is if you are in that situation where your school only offers 4 or 6 AP classes, if you take all of them and take the AP tests, colleges know what AP courses are offered at your school.
right,
So when they evaluate, because something that is really important that they evaluate when they're considering you for admission is they look at your GPA, but they recalculate that GPA so it's comparable to everybody else's GPA, supposedly. And they evaluate your strength of schedule, which is, did you take all the hard classes that are offered, right? So
right,
if you took all the AP classes, then you had a hard schedule.
and I'll tell you from talking with a lot of college admissions
Mhm.
experts, They say too that the colleges really know, because I've asked this question, they really know what's offered at every high school. So they have a
100%.
very clear picture, from what they're telling me, as to what it looks like at that high school. So it's not like this smoke and mirrors, or
Right.
or they're thinking everybody's the same. They realize they're not,
That's
right?
absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the thing is, what they're looking at is, did you challenge yourself as much as you could at your school, right?
Mhm.
And so if you took all the AP courses or whatever, then you did, right? And so that counts as you challenged yourself and prepared as much as you could. And of course, like if you now the other thing is, so there's one less thing on the checklist of things you need to do to show that you were very serious. But you could also, like, if you want to do things like that, you can also, almost anybody anywhere in America has a community college somewhere nearby, and many high schools now offer joint credit courses with community
Mhm.
colleges. Go take a couple of those, and they'll say, "Oh, you've taken a couple of college classes, right?" Uh, Jointly offered with your high school. That's another thing you can do. So if you want a program like that, you can add that in. But no, nobody should be stressed at all about this. This is honestly, anything that simplifies the college application process a little bit is good. That those tests were, in my opinion, fairly silly, because a 60 question multiple choice test is not really a good way to find out whether you know physics, right? But what is a good way to find out if you really know physics is an AP test, which has a multiple choice portion and a short answer portion and an essay portion, with essays scored by actual humans who grade it, right? That's how
Right.
you find out whether you learned a course, right? Is, can you do a multi-part complicated essay question that combines different concepts together? Not, can you pick the right answer from 5 answer choices?
Got it.
Right.
And, you keep referring to the AP courses.
Mhm.
Um, so the other question I guess I would ask you is, I don't want parents to also run out and go, "Oh my gosh, we've got to now get them in
Right.
all these AP courses." So do you want to just spend a second on that?
Absolutely. So this is super important. If you so the perfect way you should arrange your high school transcript, if you could plan it, right, is that you either have great grades the whole way through, or that your grades are on a constant upward trend. And as you go from year to year, you should be taking a more difficult or challenging schedule every year, right? And so what can be a horrible disaster is if you, sophomore year or junior year, take a schedule that is all AP courses, you get in over your head, and then you get poor grades in those courses. Or another thing that would be terrible is if you take all these AP courses and then you don't do well on the associated AP classes. So basically, a college, when they evaluate your transcript, they'll say, okay, you took 2 AP courses this year and 3 AP courses the next year. And if you if you don't score a 3 or higher on the associated AP test, or if you don't take it, then the college will basically just cross out AP course on your transcript and say, okay, that wasn't an AP course. It was not taught the right way or whatever, if you didn't take the AP test and get at least a 3. So the only point of taking an AP test or AP course is if you will take the associated AP test, take it seriously, and score a 3 or higher on that test. Otherwise, you have, sadly, just wasted a lot of effort and time.
And
That's
time
for
and
something the college won't take seriously.
that, and the other conversation, I guess, that I hear parents have all the time, I see it on the Facebook pages, is, should I take AP classes or should I take dual credit? So there's always
Mhm.
that debate going on.
Yeah.
And, because I can tell you, as parents and the conversations going on, the conversation I hear a lot is, why take an AP course and get a B if you could take
Hmm.
a regular course and get an A and have your GPA look better? And I don't really want to get into all the math of that, Bobby, but
Right.
do you have an opinion about AP versus dual credit? And, you
Yeah.
know,
So I think that's a decision that, you have to make based on, like, what is the community college nearby? What are what are these dual credit classes like? How have other students who've taken it felt, right? But if you take the college credit, there's a good chance that that credit is going to apply towards, if it's core stuff for your college, that's a class you're not going to have to take in college. That's a little less money that you may spend, right?
Well,
Or a
that,
lot less money.
and I'm sure that the admissions folks see that as well, right? So they see
Oh,
that there's
100%.
steps, right?
Yeah. So they're looking for, have you prepared yourself on a pathway to be ready to take college level courses? If
Mhm.
you've taken a couple of college level courses, that absolutely counts. And if you've taken an AP course and done well on the AP test, that's supposed to be similar to a college level class. So they should be equivalently impressive, but different colleges offer different amounts of credit for high AP scores, right? And so you kind of need to make sure you're going to a college that cares, right? So when I went to college, I had gotten a 5 on the AP calculus, or the AP calculus BC test, and I had gotten a 5 on something else and a 4 on something else, and I ended up with 14 hours of college credit from those AP tests. That took a semester off of my college,
Yeah, that's
right?
huge. Yeah.
And so I had the choice either of graduating a semester early and taking a full load, or taking a lighter load, throughout college. And so that can really change things. And the same thing with a dual credit course. If you can go take a couple of dual credit courses and you have 6 or 9 hours, that's a lighter load you can take, or a semester you can get done earlier. Or, as we've been talking about recently, a lot of times it takes people 5 years to get through college now. So maybe that just helps you get through in 4 years, right? And now we're talking, a 5-figure, $10,000 plus sum of money, possibly, right? Of how much it costs to go to college, right?
Well, and yeah, and we talked about this. I'm very frugal. So I love the idea that you can take a course at your community college. And, it's interesting. I do see people, families write in the comments that, yes, that costs extra money. And
Right.
that's true. It does at the time. But like you said, if you don't
Yeah.
have to pay college prices, like 4-year college prices, you're way ahead.
Yeah. Community colleges are very, very affordable. I mean, it is still true that somebody working a reasonable day job could pay their way through community college. That's still a thing that can be done,
Yeah,
right? Uh,
absolutely.
okay, and so I see that someone asked about, okay, so let's talk about the technical details of this. Are they refunding money and that sort of thing? So, yeah, the official announcement from College Board was SAT subject tests do not exist anymore as of immediately for US students. Still exists for international students, but so that's a different thing. And they just said they are automatically canceling and refunding the fees. So you don't have to go cancel, you don't have to do anything, you'll just get your fees refunded.
So how about the people that have already taken them, already paid? Will they refund those as well? Do you
No,
know?
I don't think they are going to do that, because I think I think they're just going to, colleges will still, if you have them, they'll probably still pay attention to them, right? They're just not requiring them anymore, right? So I
Okay.
think students that still have them, they'll say, oh, just like before, that is an impressive extra thing that you have done. Great, we will add that in, just as any sort of extra thing you do, right? If part of your application is, hey, look, I wrote and published this opera, right? They care about that, but although that's not part of their application requirements, right? That's something that's just like a neat extra thing you did. I think that's where it'll be. They just have now removed the requirement that used to be there, right?
Right.
And really it was almost no colleges, well, as of a year ago, no colleges required SAT subject tests anymore. What they had done for years, and this is just good for anybody who's thinking about college applications, right? For many, many years, the top schools, elite schools, said, we recommend that you take at least 2 subject tests. And of course, the long-standing trick of college admissions is, if your college says something is recommended, you should treat that as required, right? Even though they didn't say it, they say recommended. So now they will no longer. So now they are saying, instead of we recommend them, they are just saying you can take them. And now I assume they're just going to say we don't care about them, right? Now there is one other thing to mention really quick. The announcement was that they are ending SAT subject tests and they are ending the SAT optional essay. And this is fascinating because for years, there were a lot of colleges, again, mostly the top end. And as of last year, the only colleges left that required that you take the optional essay were the US military academies, which is really weird. And I think for a little while, I can't remember now if they've taken it off, but the University of Texas at Galveston, for some reason, was still requiring the essay, and no one else was. And so for years, I have said, in my sign up, welcome email to students and families said, when you take the SAT or ACT, go ahead and sign up for the optional essay, because otherwise you might end up applying to one of those random few colleges that requires it, and then you'd have to take it again. As of last year, because of COVID, everybody stopped requiring the essays. And so again, now they've just gotten rid of it. The essay never, since 2015, doesn't count toward your score anyway. It's a separate score that nobody really paid attention to. So this is good. They're just getting rid of something that nobody cared about. Okay, so I see the question, does this mean AP courses get more weight? Right?
Yeah, and a second part to that, Bobby, was, that, with the pandemic, kids aren't able to have volunteering opportunities. And the academic research programs for this summer are also canceled. So she was really kind of getting to, my gosh, what's left for them to judge these
right. Yeah. That's a fascinating question. And really, there isn't an answer. I think the answer is it's different for every college. But the traditional way to think about this is 80% of your application has almost always been GPA transcript is half of that 80, so 40%. And at standardized test scores, as in SAT or SAT, is the other half of that 80%. So then there's 20% left, and it's everything else, which is recommendations, your essays, your extracurricular activities, your subject test scores, AP scores, strength of schedule, interviews if they do them, right? All of that stuff is just as part of the other 20%. But suddenly now all these schools went test optional last year, right? And some went test blind. Well, if you're test optional, then that means you will consider tests if they're sent, but you will not consider them if you want to choose to go test optional. So what does that mean? So this, in theory, the students who still submit test scores would still be evaluated 40% test scores, 40% GPA transcript, and 20% on everything else. But what about those students who don't submit an essay? I mean, submit SAT or SAT scores at a test optional place. Is it 80% transcript and GPA and 20% everything else? Or is it suddenly, do these other things suddenly carry more weight? Right?
Right.
It's very unlikely that it has suddenly changed to 50% transcript GPA, 50% everything else. I think it's still always going to be that 80% of the decision comes from your transcript and GPA. That's the sad truth of it. That's the thing you can compare students on. You can't very well compare students just straight based on what activities they were all involved in or what volunteering they did, right? Yeah. So it matters. It's how they break the tie. It's how they figure out that. And so, and just to, kind of put it together, right? A college says, look at that 80% stuff, right? Transcript, GPA, SAT test scores, or if you're test optional, just your transcript, GPA, strength of schedule. And you take the applications and you sort them into 3 piles, right? One pile is, we are going to accept this student unless there's something terrible in the other 20%, like they got suspended from school for, violence or something, right? There's one pile that says, this student would not be able to be competitive at this school based on their GPA and transcript and scores. We are going to reject that student. And then there's this big middle pile that is like, okay, these students could be competitive at this school. Now we've got, with the people we already said yes to, we've got 4 times as many people in this middle pile as are entering class. And then they set about trying to build a diverse and interesting and successful student body of students that will want to be involved in things on campus, that will want to meet other people and not just sit in their dorm rooms and never meeting people. You're right. They want to create a class of students that's going to get along. And really, I mean, when it all comes down to it, they want students that are going to be involved in things so that after they graduate, they will stay involved in an alumni group and be successful in a job and then donate money to the school, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so that's what it really all comes down to it, right? When you think about it. So they're saying, would you fit in? Do you seem like you'd be interested in all that? And so that's where activities and your essays and all that really do matter, because if you write an essay that says, I really love meeting new people and I love getting together with other people that have different ideas than my own, and that's really exciting to me, then that may be a student that they really want, right?
Right.
But so does that mean that AP courses get more weight? It means that there's less things for AP courses to compete against, right? So now there are 8 things instead of 9 things in that pile of other things they consider. So yeah, AP courses will now matter more, and this means College Board is pushing. They are actively pushing, since they also write and sell the AP tests. They are going to be actively pushing schools to add more AP courses, focus on the AP test more. They won't anymore have a marketing arm trying to push schools to also do SATs. So all of that marketing is going to now go toward the AP tests.
Got it. Okay. Well, that has been really helpful, Bobby.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you
great.
so much. And, again, anybody that is watching this after, during the replay, please put in any questions that you have for Bobby, and he'll be glad to reach out and answer them for you.
Absolutely. And of course, as usual, you can always contact either of us on our websites. They're down there on the bottom of the screen. You can fill out a contact me form, and I'm happy to just talk to you and answer questions. I did have someone after 2 weeks ago, someone wrote in and said, hey, you mentioned that you could send me a practice test for my student to take. And so would you please send that to me? And I said, great. So, yeah. So anytime, just contact us. And yeah, and this is, as we pointed out, like, there's no answers. This is just an interesting new thing. But I think hopefully, made it a little simpler, because it's a very confusing thing to just see in the news and then think, okay, how does this affect me? So really glad we were able to do this today, Kristen. It's great to be here as usual.
All right. Thanks, Bobby. And we'll
All
see you.
right. Thank you.